fuck is Tommy Shelby?
Welcome to this video where we will talk about the movie Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man. We will begin by exploring the film storyline, summarizing its plot and discussing the cast and the characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews and audience reactions to give you a well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. Rebecca Ferguson recently addressed the possibility of returning to the Peaky Blinders universe after the debut of Immortal Man. Following its global release on March 20, the film star shared that she is leaving the door open for a potential return to the franchise. Ferguson's portrays shared that she is leaving the door open for potential return to the franchise. Ferguson portrays the enigmatic character Colo Creeks in the new Netflix film, one of the major additions to the expanding Peaky Blinders world. Although her role in new, she is not entirely unfamiliar with the franchise. Colo is introduced as the sister of Tommy Shelby, played by Cillian Murphy, adding a deeper connection to the established story. Speaking about future involvement, Ferguson responded to speculations by saying she would never completely rule out returning. In an interview, she explained that while Colo played an important role in The Immortal Man, not every character necessarily required a continued storyline. She emphasized that sometimes a character's impact is complete within a single arc, and that can be just meaningful as an ongoing presence. However, she maintained that she is open to future opportunities if story call for it. As a significant addition to the Peaky Blinders narratives, Golo has already made a strong impression and could shape the direction of the franchise moving forward. While the film work as a standalone continuation, the possibilities of further expansions and does not seem out of reach, although not official plans have been confirmed regarding sequels, spin-offs and additional films. Ferguson's comment suggests that a return remains possible even if it is not granted. Her willingness to revisit the role reflects the broader sense that the Peaky Blinders universe still has room to grow. Within the film, Ferguson's balance moments set in the present with flashbacks tied to earlier event, giving her character emotional depth. Golo's influence play a role in pushing Tommy Shelby to confront his past and reconsider his future, but at the end of the story she remained by his side. Positioned as a key figure in involving leadership of the Shelby family, her presence suggests that she could continue to be important if story moved forward. Immortal Man successfully expands the worlds of Peaky Blinders, introducing new elements while staying connected to the original series. Even though future projects have not yet been announced, it is clear that the franchise remains strong and far from finished. Netflix follow-up to one of the television's most acclaimed crime dramas quickly became a major streaming success, drawing global attention. The film brought Cillian Murphy back as Tommy Shelby and rapidly climbed into Netflix's top streaming ranking. Directed by Tom Harper, the movie reached the number 2 position in the United States shortly after release. The original BBC series, which arrived from 2013 to 2022, featured a star-studded cast introducing Tom Hardy and Anya Taylor-Joy. The Immortal Man reunites creator Steven Knight with the story, delivering a script set in 1940s. The plot follows Tommy living in a self-imposed isolation after the loss of his brother, while his son Duke Shelby steps into a leadership role within the Peaky Blinders. Additional cast members include Rebecca Ferguson and Tim Roth, alongside returning actors such as Sophie Rundles, Ned Denley, Becky Lee, and Stephen Graham. Following a highly successful television series is never easy, but the Immortal Man appear to have met that challenge effectively. Steven Knight's storytelling continued to resonate, and the film has been widely regarded as a strong continuation of Peaky Blinders' legacy. On Rotten Tomatoes, The Immortal Man holds an impressive 92% critics scores and an 89% audience rating. This place it only slightly below Peaky Blinders, which stand at 93%. The film had a limited one-weekend theatrical release in United Kingdom and was still considered a successful, with report indicating it secured the second spot at the box office during its opening weekend. Following the dramatic ending of The Immortal Man, the franchise appears to be moving in a new direction. The story continues to explore Tommy's distance from his past while shifting the timeline into 1950. Before the film release, creator Stephen Knight described it as a both continuations and new beginning. He explained that as long as audiences remain interested and there are more stories to tell, the Peaky Blinders universe will continue to expand. This set the stage for future products, including a new series that may focus on the next generation, with Duke stepping into a leadership role once held by Tommy. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man features a mix of returning characters and a new addition. Nearly 4 years after the end of season 6, Tommy Shelby finally returned to the scene. However, this version of character feels noticeably different, shaped by passages of times and the events he have endured. At the same time, a new version of Peaky Blinders has emerged, led by the younger member, including Tommy's sons, signaling a shift in power within the gang. It was inevitable that new conflicts would arise with the introduction of fresh face and changing leadership. While the film carries a slightly different tone compared to the earlier seasons, it still captured the essence of what made Peaky Blinders too compelling. In many ways, it stands alongside some of the series' strongest moments, with several spin-offs already rumored or in alongside some in development, and ending of Immortal Man produces hints about which characters may return in future products and which storylines could continue. The film benefits greatly from its strong cast, with both returning actors and new performers delivering memorable performances. Their work helps re-establish the tones of the series, which expanding it would in meaningful way. The balance between legacy characters and new additions ensure that the story feels both familiar and fresh. Cillian Murphy returns as Tommy Shelby, once again delivering a powerful performance. Born in Douglas County, Cork, Ireland, Murphy first gained major recognition with his role in 28 Days Later 2002, where he portrayed a survivor in a post-apocalyptic world. He is also rumored to return for a potential sequels 28 years later. Over the years, Murphy has built an impressive career, starring in major films such as Inspections and The Dark Knight trilogy. In 2023, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Murphy has collaborated with Nolan multiple times, further solidifying his reputation as a leading actor. In Peaky Blinder, Murphy portrays Tommy Shelby, the central figure and leader of the gang from Birmingham. Tommy is known for his sharp intelligence, strategic thinking, and relentless drive for power and control. He is willing to do whatever it takes to protect his family and expand his influence. However, in the Immortal Man set during the World War II era, Tommy appears more reflective and burdened by his past. The character shows stumbles change as he continues to struggle with the weight of experience and the consequence of his choices. They said he still remains at the very center of Peaky Blinders' final conflict, returning to his old way in a manner that will satisfy many of the franchise's most loyal fans. Sophie Randall, who plays Ada Shelby, was born in England. Her breakthrough role came in 2013 when she began portraying Ada in Peaky Blinders. Since then, Randall has appeared in several successful British television series, including Bodyguard and Gentleman Jack. In The Immortal Man, she reprises her role as Ada Shelby. Ada is one of the most important members of the Shelby family, second only to Tommy himself. Although her connection to the family criminal operations has changed over the year, and she has not always been directed only into the actions, her presence remains powerful. In The Immortal Man, Ada plays a key role in shaping important events. Her returns add emotional depth and strength several major plot points, making her one of the most impactful characters in the film. Rebecca Ferguson, who plays Kolo, was born in Stockholm, Sweden. He gained international recognition with her roles in Mission Impossible Rose Nation 2015, where she starred alongside Tom Cruise. Since then, she has built a strong career, appearing in a major productions such as Dunes and series Silo. In the Immortal Man's Ferguson's take on the role of Colo, a mysterious and spiritually driven character as the twin sister of Zelda. She carries a deeper symbolic presence in the story rather than being portrayed as a typical romantic interest for Tommy. Colo acts as more like a guiding force, pushing him forward and influencing his decision. Her roles add a unique psychological and emotional layer to the narratives. Barry Keoghan, who plays Duke Shelby, was born in Dublin, Ireland. His breakthrough roles came in 2017 with the Killings of the Sacred Deer, where he delivered a standout performance. He later gained international attention through Dunkirk. Since then, Keoghan has become one of the most recognized young actors in the industry. She received Academy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in The Banshees of Inisherin, and he continued to build a strong career with major roles. In Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man, Keoghan plays Duke Shelby, Tommy's son, and a central figure in the story. He is arguably one of the most important characters in the film, with much of the plot revolving around him. Driving by ambitions and carrying emotional weight, Duke leads the new generations of the Peaky Blinder with a more aggressive and less controlled approach than his father. Tim Ruth, who played John Beckett, was born in London, England. His breakthrough came with Razor Dogs, where he portrayed Mr. Orange. His role not only brought him recognition but also began a long working relationship with Quentin Tarantino. Ruth later appeared in other notable films such as Pulp Fiction and The Hateful Eight. Beyond these roles, Ruth has built a strong career across both films and television. He also appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe through She-Hulk and Tony at Law, known for portraying complex and often morally ambiguous characters. Ruth brings the same intensity to the Immortal Man, adding depth and tension to the story. Tim Ruth take on the roles of main antagonists John Beckett in Peaky Blinders and the Immortal Man. He is portrayed as a Nazi supporter working behind the scene to influence the outcome of the war in Germany. To achieve his goal, he seeks the help of the Shelby gangs and is willing to go to extreme length to make his place succeed. Actor Ned Danny was born in Ireland. His breakthrough role came in the 2011 series The North, where he starred alongside a strong cast that include Olivia Colman and others. Since then, Danny has primarily focused on television roles. In Peaky Blinders, Ned Danny played Charlie Strong's close relatives of Shelby family and an immortal sporting figure. He works at the dock alongside the Shelby's operations and often become involved in the gang activities as Uncle Charlie. He frequently offers advice to Tommy, although Tommy does not always listen. Despite his, Charlie remains as a loyal and steady presence within the family. Actor Peaky Lee was born in Belfast, North Ireland. His first major come in Peaky Blinders when he began playing Johnny Dogs in 2013. Since then, Lee has continued to portray the character and has also appeared in various television products. In the series, Peaky Lee played Johnny Dogs or Romany Alley and one of the Tommy Shelby's most trusted associates. Johnny Dog serves as a a link between the Peaky Blinders and Romani community, helping secure important alliances for the Shelby family. He remained one of the Tommy's most loyal friends and continued to stand by him in the Immortal Man. Stephen Grahams, born in Kirkby, Lancashire, England, gained recognized with his breakout role in 2006. This is England, where he played combo. Prior to that, he had already started gaining attention through his performance in the 2000s films Snatch, where he appeared alongside Jason Statham. In Peaky Blinders, Stephen Graham plays Hayden Staggs, a union leader who becomes an important ally to Tommy. He reprises his role in the Immortal Man, once again supporting Tommy in his plan despite fully understanding the risk involved. His character adds strength and realism to the story through his grounded perspectives. Actor J. Lycorge was born in England. He is best known for his roles as Tim Drake, also known as Ruben in the live-action DC series Titans. Although his work outside of the series has been limited, he has steadily gained recognition in Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. J. Lycorge plays a younger member of the gang who quickly establishes himself as a capable and confident presence. He is intelligent, composed, and knows when to act aggressively and when to hold back, making him valuable additions to the group. And Peck returns to reprises his role as a Curly in the film. Curly worked as a stable hand and a caretaker for the Shelby's family's horse. While he may not be the most intellectually sharp character, he has a deep connection with animals and has proven himself to be a loyal and useful member of the Peaky Blinders over time. Casper Hilton's Hyle play a Carl Thorne, the son of Ada Shelby in The Immortal Man. The character was previously portrayed by the younger actors, but due to the time jump between season 6 and the film, Carl is now significantly older. His role reflects his growth and increasing importance as he becomes a more active and sportive figure in his mother's life and within the involving Shelby's family dynamics. Casper Hilton's Hyle play Carl Thorne, the sons of Ada Shelby's in Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. The character was previously portrayed by a younger actor, but due to the jump between season 6 and the Netflix, Carl now appears even older. He takes a more attractive role, is often showing sporting his mother. Why Peaky Blinders Immortal Man is different from previous stories has been explained by the character Steven Knight. According to him, his long-awaited continuation is not just a nostalgic return for fans, but something much bigger. The film serves as a sequel to the hit Netflix series Peaky Blinders, taking place several years after the events of the season 6. Cillian Murphy returns as Tommy Shelby's stepping back into the world shaped by time loss and the major change with his family. The story explores what has happened during those missing years and how Tommy is forced to confront both his past and present. The film is designed not only to conclude Tommy's journey but also to set up future stories within the same universe, which are expected to be developed by both Netflix and BBC. In interviews, Stephen Knight explained that the film was never meant to simply continue from where the series ended. Instead of revisiting the same tone and structure, the story introduces a new direction while still keeping core elements intact. Familiar aspects such as Tommy's transformations and the legacy of the Shelby family remain important, but the narrative is driven by new relationships and conflicts. One of the central focuses of the film is evolving dynamic between Tommy and his sons, Duke Shelby, played by Barry Keoghan, along with the growing tensions involving the antagonist John Beckett, played by Tim Ruth. These relationships push the story forward and give it a stronger sense of identity rather than making it feel like a direct continuations of the series. Rather than picking up of immediately after season 6, the Immortal Man present a very different versions of Tommy Shelby. He is older, more isolated and deeply affected by the passage of times. However, other side's foreign begins with pulling him back into the world he once controlled. Global events and personal conflicts, especially those involving his family, force him to return and take action once again. Stephen Knight describes his approach as a way to build tensions gradually instead of immediately placing Tommy back into the conflict. The story slowly begins him back, creating a stronger impact when the finally returns the world of the power and the violence. He compared it to a pulling back a bow before releasing the arrow, building anticipations before delivering the moment. Cillian Murphy also spoke about how the time jumps changed Tommy's relationships with his son Duke. He explained that Tommy had effectively walked away from his family at the end of season 6, and as a result, their reunion is far from smooth. The distance between them creates emotional tension, making their interaction more complex and difficult rather than warm or welcoming. He added that Barry Keoghan's performance was outstanding, noting that he brought a strong sense of unpredictability to his characters on scene. While audience has seen many relationships in the world of Peaky Blinders, the dynamic between Tommy and Duke feel entirely new. The last time viewers says Duke, he was young and still finding his place, especially after that quiet but meaningful moment with Tommy at the end of the season 6. When discussing their relationship, Murphy explained that Tommy had effectively abandoned his son after returning from war. He associated himself completely emotionally and psychologically, withdrawing from everything around him. This created a deep distance between father and son. When they finally meet again in the film, their tensions is immediately present. Their interactions are not warm or easy, but instead filled with unspoken conflict, the emotional weight. Murphy also mentioned that working with Barry Keoghan's made those scenes even more powerful. The two actors already knew each other from previous work, which helped build a natural connections on scenes. He noted that Keoghan has continued to grow as an actor, bringing both intensity and unpredictability to his performance. According to Murphy, the very first day of filming, which included a major confrontation scenes, helped establish the tone for their relationship throughout the film. Director Tom Harper, who previously directed several episodes in season 1, returned to the direct Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. He shared that coming back to the project felt like reuniting with family because of his past experience with the cast and character. The transitions back into the world of Peaky Blinders felt natural and comfortable. Harper explained that although many of the original characters are no longer part of the story, the core of the series still revolve around Tommy Shelby's. Working again with Cillian Murphy and Stephen Knight allowed him to quickly reconnect with the tone and rhythm of the show. He also pointed out how much Murphy has evolved as an actor over the year. Now older and more experienced, Murphy brings a deeper level of strength and maturity to the roles of Tommy, having achieved major success, including his Academy Award wins. He still maintains the same dedications and presence that defines his earlier performance, but not with even greater depth and control. He has an incredible level of control over his craft, which made the experience even more interesting to watch. It was something truly special to be part of. Not many actors get the chance to return to the same character and story world decades later. Peaky Blinders: The Immortal Man is set to release on Netflix on March 2026. Now moving into the review, Tommy Shelby is returning in the story that brings a dark and intense conclusions to an era. After years of self-imposed isolations, Tommy is forced to face the consequence of his past actions. While it is both chilling and engaging to see him step back into his former role as the leader to his world, the film takes both narrative risks that do not always fully deliver, leaving certain parts feeling incomplete. The story takes place several years after the season 6 finale, where Tommy says goodbye to the Shelby's family and names a successor before disappearing. In The Immortal Man, he is shown living in isolation, spending his time reading with only Johnny Dogs by his side. Despite the passage of time, Tommy remains a troubled man, unable to escape the guilt and memories of those he lost. The ghosts of his past continue to haunt him, driving him deeper into emotional distance. The film introduced some surprising developments, including revelations that bring back elements from the past, adding emotional weight to the Tommy journey. However, the stories sometimes struggle to give enough space to fully explore these moments, while the impact on Tommy and a few returning characters is clear. Other emotional threads do not receive the same level of the depth. One of the weaker areas is how the film handled Duke as a character who was only briefly explored in the series. His role in the film carries importance, but it lacked development needed to make his emotional arc fully convincing. At the same time, Tommy himself often feels like a quieter version of who he once was, almost like a shadow of his former self, which creates an even balance between past and present storytelling. The film also faced challenge in balancing its expanded cast with the weight of original story. Director Tom Harper presented The Immortal Man with strong visuals, and in many ways it feels like an extended and cinematic continuations of season 6. However, the film struggles to equally balance the legacy of earlier seasons with the introductions of new characters and the conflicts. While the intention is clearly to provide a final chapter for his era of Peaky Blinders, some important developments from the end of season 6 are either overlooked or not explored in enough detail. As a result, certain emotional payoff feel reduced, and the overall impact of story does not always reach the level that long-time fan might expect. Best when it focuses on the deeper theme of Tommy's past and the way his personal demons continue to affect him and his family. The character, like other, shall be played by Sophie Rondels, play a crucial role in grounding his emotional and pulling him back towards reality. This is most effective in the first act, which feel like a more intimate and character-driven stories before the large conflict begin to take over. The turning point come when Tommy is forced to return in order to save his son Duke from becoming something darker, something shaped by the same violent world Tommy's once ruled. The idea of the son suffering because of sins of his father is powerful and fitting for Tommy's stories. However, it is not fully explored in the convincing way, mainly because the relationship between the Tommy and Duke was never deeply developed into the original series. Instead of fully building that emotional connection, the film shifts its focus toward the broader conflicts and the darker transformations of Duke. Tommy's guilt over abandoning his son is introduced, but it does not receive enough depth to make the emotional payoff as strong as it could have been. At the same time, several key members of the original Shelby families are missing, which weakens the emotional core of the story. Barry Keoghan's deliver a strong performance as Duke, capturing his anger, instabilities, and unpredictabilities after being abandoned. However, the character who could have benefit from more development compared to other characters in the series. Duke does not feel as fully realized, which make the final moment of his arc less impactful than intended. This shows extends to some of the newest characters as well as Rebecca Fergus characters is well cast and performed, but her role does not get enough depth beyond the surface conflict. The film introduced themes such as political manipulations, power struggles, and external threats, but many of these elements feel undeveloped, leaving a sense of missed potential. As the story moves forward in final act, the film builds toward a traditional Peaky Blinders style climax filled with actions and intensity. However, despite the scales of these moments, the emotional weight does not fully land. The film impacts to deliver major twists and character-driven resolutions, but the impact feels weaker because many of the emotional threads were not fully established earlier. The final movement include elements that have defined Peaky Blinders since it begins in 2013, including themes of power, identity, and personal struggle. Yet the emotional resonance is not as strong as expected, largely due to the lack of deeper character development and connection. Overall, the Immortal Man feels both overfilled and underdeveloped. At the same time, it introduced many ideas and storylines but does not give them enough space to fully unfold. Because of this, the film may have benefited from a long format or series structure, possibly with multiple episodes, could have allowed the story to explore its characters and themes more effectively. In this current form, the film struggles to balance its legacy element with its new directions. While it carries the weight of the original series, it does not fully use that history to strengthen its narratives. At the same time, it introduces new characters and conflicts but does not develop them enough to create a complete and satisfying experience. The introductions of new characters and risks in the Immortal Man suggest that the story might have worked better in longer television format. With a 6-hour series, the narrative could have allowed more time to build tensions, giving the ensemble space to breathe and react naturally to the events unfolding around them. It would also have provided room to explore deeper emotional layers, develop the villains more fully, and properly establish the newer characters. In particular, the complex relationship between Tommy Duke and the new additions to the story would have been given more attention instead of rushing through key moments. A long format could have allowed these dynamics to evolve in a more meaningful and satisfying way. That said, The Immortal Man is still a well executed attempt to bring Tommy Shelby back, carrying forward the legacy of Peaky Blinders while staying true its core identity. Even when the story struggles with pacing and depth, there is something undeniably compelling about returning to this world. A major reason for this is a Cillian Murphy, whose performance once again encored the films. He commanded every scene with the same intensity, control, and presence that made Tommy Shelby one of the most ionic anti-heroic in television history. His portrayal remains powerful, layered, and emotional restraints yet deeply impactful. The film is at its strongest when it embraces the classical element that defined the original series. Moments where Tommy comforts his enemies, deliver sharp and calculated threats, and remind others why he is feared with carry immense weight. These scenes capturing the essence of what made Peaky Blinders so memorable. Beyond that, the movies continue to showcase the signature style of the series, from slow motion sequence of the gang walking in formation to carefully crafted costume design to blend of dark armor and intense confrontations. The films retain the aesthetic identity fan expects. The cinematography is visually striking from beginning to end, giving the story a polished and cinematic feel. At the same time, the emotional core remains tied to the Tommy journeys. The film revisits his past, his guilt, and his struggles to find peace. There are moments where his return to Birmingham's and his interactions with familiar face carrying a strong sense of nostalgia and closure. What makes his particularly meaningful is that Tommy's has always been more than just a gangster. While he may have brought chaos and violence, he was also a man shaped by loss, belief, and survival. The film acknowledged that duality, showing that despite everything, he never completely lost his sense of purpose. Ultimately, the Immortal Man succeeds in bringing a sense of closure to Tommy Shelby's stories. While not every narrative thread is perfectly resolved, the film across is achieved its goals of concluding one of the television's most iconic characters. The ending may not fully deliver the emotional depth some viewers expected, and certain characters arc feel complete. However, it still offers a satisfying farewell, especially for long fans of the series. In the end, Peaky Blinder, The Immortal Man stand as an entertaining and worthwhile return to the beloved world. It may not reach the full weight of the original series, but it delivers enough styles, performance, and atmosphere to make the journey back feel rewarding. The film had a limited theatrical release on March 6 before arriving on Netflix on March 2026. At its core, the story revolves around the intense and emotional conflict between Tommy Shelby and his son Duke, played by Barry Keoghan. Their estranged father-son's relationship becomes one of the central driving forces of the narrative. The original Peaky Blinders series, which gained popularity throughout the 2010s, built its identity on three keys: a strong visual styles, a unique atmosphere, and a magnetic presence of Cillian Murphy. Set in post-World War One Belgium, the show combined historical drama with modern storytelling in a way that felt fresh and distinctive. While some comparisons were made to other crime dramas, Peaky Blinders ultimately carved out its own identity. Its storytelling focused on power, loyalty, ambitions, and survival, all wrapped in a stylized and cinematic presentations that set it apart from similar shows. In contrast, the Immortal Man impact to expand that legacy into a larger cinematic experience. And while it succeeded in capturing part of what made the original series great, it also highlights the challenges of translating a deeply character-driven story into a shorter film format. The stylistic choice that made Peaky Blinders stand out are still very much present here. The series has always blended hard rock music with striking visuals of sharply dressed gangsters in tailored suits and flat caps. That contrast created a unique tone, though at times it would feel slightly artificial. Even so, the production designs and cinematography has always been top tier. The visual identity of the world remained one of its strongest assets, even when the writing does not fully live up to the atmosphere to its creates. Personally, Peaky Blinders has always felt closer to style-driven dramas rather than deeply layered character studies. There is a sense of flashy entertainment, something visually appearing that does not always demand intense attention to detail. That feeling become even more noticeable while watching Peaky Blinder, The Immortal Man, a 2 hour feature film now available on Netflix. The film acts as a continuation and reflections of the original series, which concludes in 2020 after 6 seasons. Visually, the film is still impressive and the performance remains strong. Barry Keoghan's deliver a practically compelling performance, bringing intensity and presence to every scenes he appears in. His characters share strong on-scene chemistry with nearly everyone, whether it is hostile father figure or random opponent or even member of his own family. However, despite these strengths, some of the fan service moments feel rushed or incomplete, as if the story is moving too quickly towards its final destination without fully developing key element. At times, the narratives feel like it is skipping important emotional beat just to reach its conclusion. The film, directed by Tommy Harper and written by Stephen Knight, leans heavily into dramatic storytelling. However, the dialogues can occasionally feel overly simple or exaggerated, lacking the depth expected from such a rich world. Cillian Murphy returned as Tommy Shelby, by a hunted and complex former leader of the Peaky Blinders. When we first met Tommy, he was a young man shaped by war, a survivor of World War One, already building his reputation in Belgringham's underworld while carrying the burdens of protecting his unpredictable family. In The Immortal Man, Tommy is very different now. Set in 1940s, he is older, more associated, and deeply affected by grief. After the event of the series finale, he withdrew from society, cutting himself off from world. Years later, he is shown living a quiet and almost lifeless existence. He spends a day writing his autobiography on an old typewriter, hunted by memories of loss, including his daughter and many tragedies that shaped his life. His isolation is eventually broken when two important figures re-entered in his life. His sister Ada, played by Sophie Randall, now a respected political figure, bring urgent news Belgringham has fallen into chaos after a devastating aerial attack, and Tommy's son is leading the Peaky Blinder into a reckless and destructive directions. At the same time, another mysterious woman portrayed by Jessica Ferguson appears with her own motives. He represents a guide force pushing Tommy back forward, identity he had tried to leave behind. Her presence adds a spiritual and symbolic layers to the story, though not all it fully explored. Tommy's return follows a familiar narrative path, a Roland hero being pulled back into conflict. Ada serves as the voice of reality, showing him the damage left behind, while the mysterious woman acts as a catalyst pushing him forward. One of the major revelations is the state of Belgringham itself. The city has suffered gently, and the Peaky Blinder, now under new leadership and losing control. Tommy's sons, introduced early in the series, has taken charge, but his decision was unstable and dangerous. This story's lines build on a twist introduced in the final season, where Tommy discovered he had previously unknown son from a past relationship. The revelations now become central to the film, shaping both the emotional conflict and the directions of the narrative. Overall, while The Immortal Man delivers strong visual and performance, it struggled to fully balance its storytelling. It captures the essence of Peaky Blinder, but at times feel rushed, leaving certain emotional and narrative element undeveloped. The character of Duke play a major role throughout the story, reflecting the darker tone of the period. Previously portrayed by the younger actor, the character is now brought to life by Barry Keoghan, who deliver a bold and intense performance in a striking casting choice. Duke is present as someone who cares about nothing and no one, taking over from his strict father. He leads the Peaky Blinder deeper into a criminal activities and making reckless decisions that only push the gang further into the chaos. His actions go beyond ordinary crime. He became involved in dangerous operations, including dealing with the illegal goods and exploiting vulnerable people. His path is clearly destructive. Eventually, he crosses paths with a calculated and manipulative British figure named John Beckett. Portrayed by Tim Roth, Beckett is tied to a larger scheme involving German interests using counterfeit currencies to destabilize the British economy. While Duke is drawn in by the promise of power and money, it becomes clear that he is being influenced by forces far beyond his understanding. There is a strange contrast between his raw aggressions and almost theatrical presence of the villain manipulating event behind the scene. This raises an important question throughout the film. Can Tommy Shelby truly save his son from becoming something worse, or is Duke already too far gone? At times, the Immortal Man is so visually impressive that it feels almost wasted on small scenes. The cinematography is stand out as one of the film's greatest strengths. Wide shot of the mist covered northern landscapes, old stone structures, and dim natural lighting create a powerful atmosphere. The use of compositions and contrast give many scenes a painter-like quality, making them visually unforgettable. However, while the film excels visually, the writing does not always match that level. The dialogue can feel overly simple at times, lacking the depth expected from such a rich story. There are moments where emotional scenes feel rushed or underdeveloped, as if the film is moving too quickly without fully exploring its character. Cillian Murphy returns once again at Tommy Shelby, the hunted leader of the Peaky Blinders. When audience first met Tommy, he was a young man shaped by war, survivor of World War One, who was already caring after his parents in Belgian criminal world while carrying the burden of protecting his man now set in pairs. Like years later, he is shown living in association forward and control. His life is quite also empty. He spent his time writing an autobiography on an old typewriter, reflecting on past the memories of his daughter who died a long ago, who continue to haunt him. His brother is no longer part of his life, and the reason for that gradually become clear as the story unfolds. Tommy is no longer a man chasing power. He is a man carrying the weight of everything he has lost. Tommy remains disconnected from the fate of his crew without him, living in an association until he is visited by two women he does not fully welcome. The first is his strong-willed sister Oda, played by Sophie Rundle, now a respectful political figure in their hometown. The second is mysterious woman portrayed by Rebecca Ferguson, who appear to guide Tommy toward that what seemed like his ultimate destiny. Both women act as a catalyst, pulling him back into a world he tried to leave behind. Ada bring urgent news. Belgringham is ruins after a devastating airstrike, and Tommy's son is running the Peaky Blinders into the ground through reckless and dangerous decisions. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman carries her own symbolic presence, almost spiritual, pushing Tommy forward in ways that feel both intentional and unclear. Tommy is forced to confront a past revelation that changed everything. In the final season, he discovered has a long lost son born to a gossip's woman named Zelda. That son, now grown, is Duke, played by Barry Keoghan. Duke is no longer an innocent figure. He has become cold, Detached and deeply involved in criminal activities, taking control of Peaky Blinder, Duke lead the gang into darker and more dangerous territory. His operation include everything from fraud to exploiting wartime's chaos for profit. His actions show no concern for morality, and he appears driven to power rather than loyalty. Soon Duke become entangled with a calculated and manipulative British figure, John Beckett, played by Tim Roth. Beckett is connected to a large scheme involving German interests using counterfeit currencies to destabilize the British economy during World War time. Duke is tempered by the money and influence his partnership offers, but more than that, he is drawn in by the illusions of power and control. There is something almost unsettling about how easy he embraces his path, and if he is trying to prove himself in ways that mirror yet discard his father's legacy. There rises a central question throughout the film: can Tommy Shelby truly save his sons from becoming something worse, or has Duke already crossed a line that cannot be undone? Visually, The Immortal Man is stunning. The cinematography captures the northern English landscapes with remarkable precision, mist-covered cities, old stone architectures, and soft natural light, creating a haunting atmosphere. Setting the use of compositions and contrast so a clear mysteries of visual storyline. However, his visual beauty sometimes feel undercut by the way the film is edited. Certain scenes rely heavily on stylized effects, including hazy transitions and overlay dramatic cuts, which can interrupt the flow. While these choices aim to enhance the mood, they occasionally distract rather than support the story. There is also a noticeable emphasis on visual details, from costumes to props. Every element is carefully designed. The suits, caps, and periods styling remain ionic, and the attention to detail is clear in every frame. At times through the film feels overloaded with style, the focus on visual presentation can overshadow the narratives itself, making some scenes feel more like carefully staged image that than fully developed moments. Even so, the film maintains a scene of mystery and atmosphere. There is always something happening beneath the surface. Even if not everything is fully explained, the story may not answer every question, but it's deliver its mystery and confidence and style. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man reviews Cillian Murphy turns into powerful continuations of the gangster saga, now set against the expanding backdrops of the World War II. Tommy Shelby is drawn back from self-imposed exiles to face his most difficult challenge yet, with the future of his family and his country at stake. He must confront his past and decide whether to reclaim his legacy or let everything burn. Among all the series I have followed over the year, Peaky Blinders has always stood out. It constantly felt like a show that, however, just below being a massive global hit, yet it built a strong and loyal fan base. Often compared to shows like Boardwalk Empire, it carved out its own identity through styles, atmosphere, and character-driven storytelling. Created by Steven Wright, the series gave Cillian Murphy one of the most iconic roles of his career long before his Academy Award win across 6 seasons. The Sun's influenced fashion, tunes, and storytelling before concluding in 2022. Now the Immortal Man brings back several families' faces while introducing new one alongside returning cast members. The film features performance from Barry Keoghan, Rebecca Ferguson, and Tim Roth. The film attempt to give Tommy Shelby's stories a cinematic conclusion, maintaining the same grand scopes and emotional weight but compressing it into a shorter runtime. Fan will enjoy seeing Murphy once again in the Tommy signature three-piece suits, but the film does not fully reach the depth or complexity of the full television seasons. Even so, it feels more cinematic than most TV's to film adaptations, with a large scale and more polished presentations. Set 5 years after Tommy's burned his possessions and disappeared into illusions, the story unfolded. World War II began to impact Britons throughout bombing and rising political tension. Themes of the nationalisms and the extremisms, which were always present in the series, now become more central as the threat of Nazis' influence grew. Tommy, now older and still suffering from the traumas of World War One, tries to move forward by writing his memories titled The Immortal Man. It is his attempt to make sense of the life he was lived and the pain he carries. In his absence, his son Duke, played by Barry Keoghan, has taken control of Peaky Blinders. Duke has exploiting wartime chaos and targeting British military resources. His leadership is reckless and driven by frustrations, especially as he became entangled with the dangerous figure John Beckett, portrayed by Tim Roth. Beckett's influence pulled Duke deeper into a larger and more dangerous network. This creates our growing tensions, then forces Tommy to return and restore balance within both his family and his organization. The film also brings back several familiar characters. Stephen Graham's returns a Hydian Staggs, while Packing Lee reprises his role as a Johnny Dogs. Ned Denny appears again as a Charlie Strong, and Sophie Randall's returns as a Arthur Shelby's Rebecca Ferguson's Jones. The cast is dual role connected to the mysterious Zelda. Because many characters from the earlier season did not survive the final chapter of the series, the film spends time addressing their absence. This results in several moments of explosions where dialogue is used to fill in the gap between the series ending and the event of the film. While this helps connect the stories, it can also make certain scenes feel heavy or overly explained. The emotional weight of past losses is present but not always explored as deeply as it could have been. Overall, The Immortal Man survives a cinematic continuations that honors the legacy of Peaky Blinders, even if it cannot fully capture the depth and detail of the original series. While Peaky Blinders always excelled as building stronger relationship between its core cast and introducing new character each season, The Immortal Man struggled to recreate that same dynamic. With limited scene times, it became difficult to fully develop the newer characters or giving them the same emotional weight. It is still great to see returning actors like Peaky Lee and Sophie Randall, but the film places most of its focus on father-son relationship. The dynamic between Tommy and Duke carries much of the stories. At time, it feels reminiscent of classics crimes dramas where legacy and conflict between generation take central stage. Barry Keoghan fits naturally into the role, bringing intensity and unpredictability that work well opposites Cillian Murphy. One of the biggest strengths of Peaky Blinders has always been its richly built world. The depictions of 1920s and 1930s England filled with rival gangs and crime families gave the series a unique identity compared to other gangster stories. However, while each season had the same multiple episodes to the explore this world, The Immortal Man feels too short to fully do justice to story it is trying to tell. The soundtrack remain a defining feature, maintaining the show's signature tone, but the compressed run times work against the narratives, limiting its ability to develop key moments and emotional arc. Tommy Shelby's presence still dominates the film, but his transmissions is noticeable. His time always from leading the Peaky Blinder has changed him, and the story shift. The
power dynamics in a different direction instead of criminals standing against authorities, and the narrative learns to world portraying them more as figures of control or even reliant heroes. This shift slightly alter the anti-hero tone that defined the original series, the raw, rebellious energy where characters feel like outsiders fighting against the system is less prominent here. While this does not ruin the story, it does make Tommy's evolution harder to fully appreciate for fans. Tom Harper brings a cinematic quality to the film, making it feel more like a larger scale production rather than just an extended television episode. Having previously worked on projects like Halt of Stones and the Aeronauts, he manages to elevates the visual presentations while still staying true to the gritty tunes of Peaky Blinders. The cinematography is visually striking, capturing the harsh and atmospheric setting in a way that enhances the storytelling. Scenes featuring Tommy, especially those emphasizing his illusions and internal struggles, are partially well executed. Writer Stephen Knights clearly understand these characters deeply. There is no doubt that this film represents the next chapter in Tommy Shelby's journey. However, that same clarity is not always present across the entire screenplay. At times, the film feels overloaded. Too many ideas, storylines, and emotional beats are packed into a limited runtime. This creates moments where the narratives feel rushed or unfocused, as if it is unsure what to prioritize. Because of this, some emotional moments do not land as strongly as they could. The film occasionally learn into a dramatic extremes without fully building the foundation needed to support them. Despite these issues, The Immortal Man is still worth watching, especially for performances. Cillian Murphy, Barry Keoghan's deliver standout performance as father and son. Their chemistry, tension, and emotional conflict carry much of the film and make it engaging from start to finish. In the end, even with its faults, their performance alone makes the film a worthwhile experience. If you are new to the world of Peaky Blinder, you may find yourself feeling lost. Story continues years after where the series originally began, and without that background, it can be difficult to fully understand the character and their history. The series built its strong fan base through a powerful mix of action, styles, and drama, telling the long journey of the family rising through the criminal world. That stories unfolded over dozens of episodes, allowing time to develop relationships, conflicts, and emotional depth. Trying to carry that same weight into a film with a limited runtime is a difficult task. Director Tom Harper and writer Stephen Knight attempt to bring that same energy into a much shorter format, but the result sometimes feels rushed. There are moments where the film leans heavily into a dramatic emotion without fully building them, making certain scenes feel exaggerated than rather than earned. The story feels crowded with ideas. Too many elements are packed into a short runtime, and at times it seems unclear what the film wants to focus on. Because of this, some characters arcs and plot lines do not receive the attention they deserve. Despite these issues, Peaky Blinder Immortal Man is still worth watching, largely because of its performance. Cillian Murphy and Barry Keoghan deliver powerful portrayals as father and son. Their emotional tension on a screen presence carry much of the film, making it engaging even when the narrative struggles. However, for newcomers, the experience may feel overwhelming. The film assumes a level of familiarity with the series, which can make it harder to connect with the story. The central conflict filled with violence and high stakes works well as a cinematic level. The large scale movement, especially the action sequel, feel suited for a big scene. Still, the rest of the film might have benefit from more time, either through a longer format or even a shorter additional season to fully explore its ideas. As its core, the Immortal Man services as a continuations and conclusions of Tommy Shelby's stories. His legacy remains central to everything, and whether he returned or fade away, the impact of his character continue. Stephen Knight always attended to end his chapter of the story with a film set during World War II, and the visions is clear from opening sequence. The film begins with a powerful and intense scenes, combining striking visuals, music, and emotional movement before everything collapses into a chaos. It's immediately set a high stake tune. A major threat in the story comes from a dangerous figure, John Beckett, played by the Tim Roth. He represents a chilling force working to destabilize Britain by manipulating its economy through a counterfeit currency. His plans ties directly into the larger wartime conflict, raising the stakes beyond just gang warfare. At the same time, Duke Shelby, Tommy's sons, become deeply involved in the world. Carrying the weight of his father's legacy, he stepped into a world filled with pressures, anger, ambitions. His generally reflects the outgoing struggle between the power and identity. Meanwhile, lives from the front line, associated and burdened by grief. He exists in a quiet state of reflection, haunted by memories of the people he has lost and the life he once led. In the end, Peaky Blinder, the Immortal Man, deliver a visual, impressive, and emotional charged conclusions. It may not fully capture the depth of series, but it provides a final chapter that fan can appreciate. Tommy Shelby's story may be ending, but the legacy of Peaky Blinders is far from over. Tommy quiet domestic life now stands in sharp contrast to the violent underworld he once controlled. Even in isolation, the film constantly remained us of the past. Director Tom Harper includes hunting visual flashes, bloodsheds, memories, and symbolic imagery to keep the Tommy violent historic cows to the surface. Emotional exiles hunted by guilt and regret. His life has become still and quiet, yet his past refuses to let him rest. The question that lingers throughout the film is how long he can remain detached from the world, especially as his son begins to move down a darker path. One that may be even more dangerous than anything Tommy faced himself. Cillian Murphy and Barry Keoghan create a powerful and tense father-son dynamics. Watching Murphy return to his ionic role in is a true highlight. He brings back Tommy Shelby with a controlled intensity, showing a man struggling to carry the weight of his legacy once again. While the film does not include many of the sharp, memorable speech that define the original series, the moment we do get still carry impact. There are scenes where Tommy reserves his presence, reminding all others exactly who is, and those moments stand out strongly. At the same time, there is a powerful interactions where younger characters underestimate him, unaware of his they are dealing with. These moments create tensions and often and in a brutal reminder of Tommy's true nature. The film gives Murphy space to deliver a more reflective performance instead of constant dominance. We see a quieter version of Tommy's, one shaped by memory and loss. His narration try to the memory he is writing add another layer of his character, even bringing occasional unexpected humor.
Visually, the film remains striking. The cinematography is captured Tommy in a way that reflects both his strength and his isolations. Every frame reinforces the ideas of the man catch between past and present. The castings also works well, especially with Barry Keoghan as Duke. His performance brings unpredictability and intensity, making him a believable and dangerous successor. Even Tommy himself struggled to fully understand him. Duke's actions grow more extreme as the story progresses, creating conflict not only with Tommy but also with other members of the family, including Ada, played by Sophie Randalls. Her presence adds emotional weight and highlights the growing divides within the family. The tension between father and the son built throughout the film, leading to moments that are both raw and brutal. Their conflicts reflects the core themes of the story: legacy, powers, and identity. However, it is important to note that the film contains major spoilers for the original series. If you have not watched Peaky Blinders, starting with this movie may not be best choice. That said, the film does adapt to provide enough context, thorough dialogues, and explosions to help new viewers follow the story. While it cannot fully replace the experience of the series, it still offers a complete narrative for those willing to jump in the end. Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man deliver a visually rich and emotionally drive continuation led by strong performance and a powerful central conflict. The film also brings back surviving characters, including a fan favorite played by Stephen Grumps, giving them a strong presence and making their roles feel important. These returns help keep long-time fans engaged even when the story introduced new faces. One of the more surprising elements from Rebecca Ferguson, whose character introduced a twist, including a twin, allowing the story to reconnect with the familiar elements in an unexpected way. Whether you are a long time fan or a new
Critics Scenes Cannells, a UK-based editor in London and a former Australia editor, highlights how the movie blends entertainment, culture, and emotional storytelling. His perspective reflects how the film balances action with deeper theme tied to memory and identity. After 6 seasons of television from 2013 to 2022, Peaky Blinders built a massive cultural impact, even influencing fashion trends like flat caps among viewers. Now the story continues. The full-length features films a gritty, physical, and intense cinematics experience filled with mud, blood, and raw emotion. This movie versions written by Stephen Knight expand the world originally inspired by rare historical gangs that operates in Britain's during the early 20th century. At the center of it all is Cillian Murphy returning as a Tommy Shelby, a deeply complex character shaped by trauma from World War I and driven by a relentless need to survive. When the story resumes, several years have passed. It is now the 1940s and darkness is spreading across Europe. Tommy is no longer in the heart of the Birmingham's criminal world. Instead, he lives in isolation in a remote mansion far from city he once controlled. His only constant companion is Johnny Dogs, played by Pecky Lee. Tommy is hunted by a ghost of his past, including memories of his brother and his daughter Ruby. He spent his time writing when appeared to an autobiographical account reflecting on everything he has lived through. His life has become quiet, but the weight of his past remains heavy. The story shifts when a mysterious woman played by Rebecca Ferguson arrives and delivers news that changed everything. His son, portrayed by Barry Keoghan, is now leading the Peaky Blinders. However, his new versions of gang operate differently, more reckless, more aggressive, and far less controlled. Thing became even more dangerous when sinister figures played by Tim Roth enter the picture. His plan involves spreading counterfeit currency to debate the British economic during war. The situation grows more complex. Tommy is forced to confront not only external threats but also the actions of his own sons. Like many powerful figures of that era, some characters fail to fully understand the scales of what is coming and the looming threats of the war and the political manipulations add another layer of tension to the story. Tommy eventually returns, stepping back into the world he once left behind. There is a powerful scene that reminds everyone who is in a moment he walks into a crowded pugs and reassets his authority with claims but overwhelming control, a reminder of the man he has always been. In this film, Tommy stands firmly against the rising threats of fascism. His position, this positions him differently from earlier seasons, where his morality often felt more ambiguous. Here he takes a clearer role, opposing a larger and more dangerous enemy. The theme of war, power, and survival are brought to the forefront. Writer Stephen Knight and director Tom Harper shape the story into something that feels larger in scale, fitting from a big scene adaptation. Ultimately, the film delivers a dramatic continuation of the Peaky Blinders story, where it builds a familiar element. It also expands the world into a border conflicts, sporting by strong performance and a central character who continue to involve even after everything he has endured. You may need to fully invested in an original TV series to truly appreciate the film. Although Tommy's genre is handed with a somewhat sentimental tone, especially considering what we already know about the gang during World War II. The story still works as a compiling conflict-driven drama. Peaky Blinders: The Immortal Man was released in UK cinemas on March 6 and later arrived on Netflix on 20 March. Back in 1936, John Scott, sons of the legacy editor C.P. Scott, made a major decision regarding the Guardians. Instead of keeping ownership for personal financial gain, he transferred control to the Scott Trust. This move ensured that the publication would remain independent and protected from private ownership or political influences to world. That same principle still define how the organizations operates. These structures mean the publication cannot be brought by wealthy investors or controlled by political interest. It allows independent journalism to survive at a time when powerful individuals often avoid accountability. Investigative reporting remain essential, especially when the truth is increasingly changed. Because of this model, support from leaders around the world, including places like if readers value journalism's now turning back to the film, this review come with fully honestly. I have not watched the original Peaky Blinders series. It begins during a time when I was being more selective about what show to follow, and unlike many others, I never returned to it later. The matter because the emotional connection to Tommy Shelby, played by Cillian Murphy, will naturally feel much stronger for those who followed his journey across 6 seasons. Even without the background, the film still worked well. In fact, it is a solid movie on its own. For fan, it will likely feel even more impactful. Still, the film is clearly designed so that new viewers can understand it. Part of that come from time gaps of around 7 years within the stories, and the part come from the script by Stephen Knight, which provides enough context for newcomers to follow along. The film does use familiar storytelling tools like voiceovers, flashbacks, and narration sequence to fill in missing details. While these methods are not always subtle, they help bridge the gaps for those unfamiliar with early events. At the same time, the movie award over explaining everything, allowing viewers to piece together the story naturally. The plot open with a springing angle instead of focusing purely on battlefield conflicts. The Nazis attempt to win the war through economic warfare. They use prisoners to produce counterfeit British currency on a massive scale. This plan is loosely inspired by a real historical event, although the timeline differs slightly from reality. The idea is simple but dangerous. Flood the British economy with fake money and display the entire systems to make these plans succeed. They need local network capable of distributing the currency across England. This is where the criminal world came in. Tim Roth play a key figure responsible for executing the plan. However, he cannot do it alone. He need experienced operators who understand underground networks and black market system. This is where the Peaky Blinder became essential. Their influence, connections, and ability to move unnoticed mark through the perfect tool for such a dangerous operation. The Peaky Blinders are still active, now led by Duke Shelby, played by Barry Keoghan. Tommy, a strangled son, Duke has inherited his father intensely and quickly proved himself to be just reckless and driven as Tommy once was. Naturally, one of the larger plan unfolding begins to circle back to Tommy himself. Tommy, portrayed by Cillian Murphy, is in living isolation, far removed from the world he came control. He spent his time writing his memories, cut off from everything around him. But as was once said, just when someone think they are out, they are pulled back in. The same happened here. Two people from his past return. A woman tied deeply to his historical sister other. They bring news what is happening and urge him to get involved again. Tom is still carrying the weight of his past mistakes. Is a hesitant. He seems more willing to remain distinct than to return to a chaos he once ruled. Writer Steve Knight and director Tom Harper take their time bringing Tommy back into the center of the story. Nearly half the film is spent in this quite reflective phase, but once he returns, the film shifts into a blend of suspense, action, and intense family dramas, all anchored by a calm yet powerful performance from Murphy that give the film real emotional weight. At the core of the story is a three-way conflict between Tommy, the antagonist, played by Tim Roth, and Duke. Alongside this external tension, there is a deeper and more emotional conflict between father and son. Interestingly, this is not driven by constant violence or large action scenes. Instead, it unfolds through conversations and emotionally charged moments that feel more powerful than any gunfight. At the center of it all, it future of the gang Duke want to lead. It is on way. While Tommy no longer believe in the old method, he has changed. He questions whether the Peaky Blinders should continue operating as they once did. This difference in visions create one of the film's strongest conflict, as Tommy doubt whether his son has the wisdom to lead. There are clear echoes of Tommy's own past, especially his relationship with his brother. Author the story raises an important question: can Duke learn and change, or is he destined to repeat the same mistake? This emotional journey becomes more important than a larger plot involving counterfeit money and the Nazis scheme behind it. While the external conflicts exist, the heart of the film lies in the relationship and personal struggle. Tim Ruth Williams adds an unpredictable edge to the story. At time, His action feels sudden and intense, reinforcing the danger he brings. Meanwhile, Barry Keoghan delivers a strong performance as Duke, bringing energy and predictability to the role. Rebecca Ferguson's, despite having fewer scenes, becomes central to the emotion core of the film. Her character more between both sides, interacting with Tommy and Duke in way that suggest her own hidden motives, whether she is seeking something for herself or simply trying to restore peace within the family remain unclear, adding another layer of intrigue. Visually, the film maintains the signature style of the series. Director Tom Harper keeps the tone dark, slow burning, and atmospheric. The pacing allows tension to build naturally, staying true to what made the original story so engaging. The soundtrack continues to play a major role. The film carries forward the traditions of blending modern music with its historical setting, songs, and cover intense. The mod, including another version of Rattle and along with musical inspired band like Massive Text and others, the score adds intensity and keeps the tone constant throughout. Overall, the film balances emotional depth, families, conflicts, and stylish storytellings. And true to instance, Peaky Blinders, while all of his contribute to giving Peaky Blinders the Immortal Man a slightly heavy sense of gravity that it tries to maintain from beginning to end. This is not a massive blockbuster. It's if everything, it feels more like an extended final episode with a few special additional and that work perfectly well. The film does not try to be impact conclusion to the series that begins over a decade ago. Instead, it plays more like a quiet farewell, emotional, reflective, at time even painful, while still leaving the door open for a possible return in the future. In an era where the studio rely heavily on recognizable band, it is unlikely that something as strong as Peaky Blinder will simply be left behind. After all, if the series would make flat caps fashionable again, it would easily return in another form someday. The film had a limited theatrical release on March 6 before arriving on Netflix on March 24 years after the season 6 finale. The nearly 30 years since Tommy Shelby's first appearance riding into a frame on a black horse, the story returned a new era for these British cinema dramas directed by Tommy Harper. The film feels both like a continuations and a final chapter for the character brought to life of Cillian Murphy. Tommy is pulled out of self-imposed exiles to settle unfinished business as World War II looms in the background. Even without having followed the full series, the film still leaves a strong impressions after watching it. There is a clear sense of wanting to go back and experience everything that come before. Much of that come from Murphy's performance. He brings depth and emotional weight that elevates every scene. Tommy is no longer the same man. His life is shaped by the violent loss and regrets. Living isolations in a remote farmhouse, he carries the burden of his past in every quiet moment. You do not need to know every detail of his history to understand what he is feeling. It's visible in his expressions, his postures, and the way he carries himself. The pain in his eyes, along with the memories of those he has lost. The turning point came when the realized he no longer stay hidden. The world is changing. The world is changing. The restriction tone for everything that follows on after the Peaky Blinder reappears, now led by the Tommy sons played by the Barry Keoghan. His leadership style is very different. He is more aggressive, less controlled, and driven by insecurity as much as ambitions. His character reflects the impact of amendments and struggle to prove himself. He was separated from his fathers and raised without stability, which shape the way he behaved. His relationship with Tommy become one of the central emotional conflict in the story, alongside his other played by Sophie Randalls, who continue to act as a stronger presence within the family. The film balances those personal relationship with the larger backdrop of war, while the scales of story expand. The emotional core remain focused on the Tommy and his journey. Even for viewers who have not followed the series closely, the film still works. You do not need to weight of the character. His presence alone carries enough depth to make the story engaging. In the end, the film succeeds not because it tries to be bigger than the series, but because it stays true to its tone. It delivers a grounded emotional continuation that feels both like an ending and a new beginning. You can clearly feel the heavy burden on Tommy's souls. It shows in every quiet gallance, in the way he carries himself, and in the sadness visible in his eyes. The ghost of those he has lost never truly leave him. His attempt at isolation slowly turns into something darker once he realizes he can no longer stay hidden. By 1940s, Belgium is under heavy attack from Nazi force. Bombs falls across the Midland, destroying factories where local women work. The devastation is immediate and intense, creating a powerful opening sequence that quickly led to the returns of the Peaky Blinders. These times, the gang is led by the Tommy Stangel's son, played by Barry Keoghan. His versions of leadership is louder, more aggressive, and driven by a desire to prove himself. Unlikely Tommy's, he lacks restraints. His actions come from insecurity and a deep need for acceptance. His past explains a lot. He was taken from his Romani family and later abandoned by his family, now under the watch of his aunt Ada, played by Sophie Randley, who has become a political figure. He struggles to control both himself and the gang. Ada sees the danger in his leadership and grows increasingly concerned. The character reflects a familiar themes often explored by Steve Knight's, the search for power as a way to keep identity. Duke seeks validation through control, even if it is mean making dangerous calls. This includes considering aliens that could destabilize Britons during wartime by spreading counterfeit money. For him, it's not just about money, it's about stamping out of the father shadows. But his ambition pushing him into the morally dangerous territory. When Tommy returns, he is forced to confront everything his sons. He has become the tension between them build quickly. There are moments where Tommy physically confront him, demanding answering about his action, including involvements in violent events. These scenes could have easily felt exhausted, but both Cillian Murphy and Barry Keoghan play them with seriousness and emotional weight. What could have been simple conflict turned into something deeply personal, a father and a son finally facing each other. The film also delivers moments of dark humor and classical Peaky Blinder attitude. One standout aspect is presence of Johnny Dogs, played by Peaky Lee, whose loyalty to Tommy's add both emotional sports and lighter moments. His interactions bring some reliefs while still staying true to the tones. Visually, the film stays consistent with the series. The atmosphere is enhanced by music, including tracks inspired by massive attacks and the ionic red lights, and along with the original score's intensity to key. There is a powerful scene showing Stormy walking through bars, torn streets, almost like a figures from another times, while people look at to him for productions. It refines his reputation and remind everyone who is. The antagonist, played by Tim Ruth, brings a calm but dangerous presence. His character operates with calculated cruelty, making him a believable threat within the story. He represents a different kind of enemy, one driven by profits and power rather than chaos. Meanwhile, Rebecca Ferguson adds another layer to the narrative. Her character moves in and out of the Tommy's life with a mysterious presence. At times she feels like a reminder of his past. At others she seems to guiding or manipulating them. Whether she is helping or using him remain unclear, which make her rule even more intriguing. All of these elements come together to create a story that balances emotion, conflicts, and styles, staying true to the identity of Peaky Blinder while pushing it into a new phase. Peaky Blinder continues to celebrate the Irish Romani roots of its character, highlighting their tradition, language, and cultural identity. The film lean into these elements, giving them a slightly mysterious and symbolic presence throughout the story. Rebecca Lorges plays a character tied closely to his world, intertwining lives with almost a spiritual influence. The camera often frames her in a way that makes her feel both real and otherworldly, as if he represents memories of someone lost while also guiding him towards something deeper. At the same time, it raises a question about casting. One might wonder how many actors with authentic Romani heritage were actually included in these roles, given how central that identity is to the story. One noticeable absence in the film is Arthur Shelby, Tommy's Violet's brothers, originally played by Paul Addison's duels to uh, uh, due to real world issues. He does not appear in the films, and his absence is felt the story and time to acknowledge. He is through by a brief flashback, but in the fully absence. By the end, story leans forward rapidly. The emotional weight built steadily, leaning behind a scene that, while Tommy may still be standing, everything around is changed. So, at last, I request to subscribe my channel and like these videos, and turn the bell icon on to be always notified from my new videos. Thank you, my audience. Love you all.